Hey guys, it's Marksman, and today we are going to have a lot of fun by manipulating, stretching, and just generally playing around with audio. Warping on Ableton is a very important skill to master for getting your audio to sound good when you pitch it up, when you stretch it out, if you use it correctly. We're going to talk about using it the right way first. But if you use it the wrong way, in inappropriate ways, then you can come up with some really cool, unique sounds which you could never come up with using synthesis or even just intentionally. A lot of it comes just from experimentation. So I'm going to show you how you can create really cool textures, effects, and ambiences, and even lead sounds that you can use in your tracks, which sound natural to the track and will fit in rather than just using a random ambience from a sample pack, which won't really work. So before we jump right into it, please do remember to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I see a lot of you guys aren't subscribing, but you are watching. So please help me out. It really helps me out to keep making this awesome free content for you. So without further ado, let's jump right into Ableton. Okay, so here we are in Ableton. Track here, which is a finished track that I've done, which is going to be released soon. But I've just turned off and deactivated and gotten rid of some of the elements so that you can't technically recognize what it is, but when it comes out in a couple months, you'll know exactly what it is. So let's have a listen to what we've got here. Pretty cool, eh? This track is in the key of A minor, which is going to be important in a bit. Everything's sort of exported to audio, but we're going to have a lot of fun with audio and add in some cool little ambiences and effects by using audio stretching and warping. So what is audio stretching and warping? Well, for that, I'm going to bring in a completely new random sample. That'll do. So this sample was recorded at, I believe, 126 BPM, or close enough. 126. So warping is super important because warping is the algorithm which assists stretching or speeding up audio to make it sound as natural as possible. There are a number of different types of the warping algorithm you can use. There's beats, tones, textures, repitch, complex, and complex pro. So each of these settings is suitable for a certain type of audio. So beats is, you guessed it, suitable for drums and beats. Tones is suitable for instruments or melodies playing only one note at a time. So that's called monophonic melodies or sounds. Texture, that is for polyphonic sounds, things playing multiple notes at the same time. So things like pads or chords. Repitch is like the natural algorithm where, you know, if you have a record and you play it at twice the speed, it's going to go way up in pitch. Or if you slow it down to half the speed, it's going to be way down in pitch. So pitch and time are related naturally. And what these algorithms do is basically trying to avoid that from happening and keeping the pitch the same, but preserving certain parts of it. Then you have complex and complex pro. So they're both kind of the same, although Complex Pro is more CPU intensive. But basically what this tries to do is, as you pitch something up or stretch it out, it will like try and keep it as it was as best as possible. So for things which are very detailed, like vocals or very detailed stringed instruments or like even a piano, you might want to use Complex Pro. So let's just have a mess around. This is the sample we have here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically bring this algorithm setting in by pitching it up an octave. So let's go through all the algorithms and compare it to the pitched up version and the pitched down version. We're going to pitch it up an octave. Let's go through all the algorithms in their basic format without editing anything and see what it sounds like. An octave sounds like compared to the original. And of course, the further you go away from the original, if we went up 2 octaves, it would sound even more messed up, but octave's a good place to start. So let's have a listen. This is in beats mode. And before. So you'll notice that there was a lot of like weird glitchy stuff going on, which is quite interesting. Let's try tones. that sounded pretty close, and the reason why is because this is a monophonic sound, so it sounds pretty decent. There is, of course, delay going on in the background, so there are notes overlapping. That's why it sounds a bit messed up. But you can get it sounding pretty close if you mess around with this grain size, which we'll do in a bit. Texture, let's have a listen to that. That sounds a little bit more messed up and granular. Lots of spraying going on. Sounds like last night, if you know what I'm saying. Let's take a listen to complex. That's pretty close. Then let's switch between complex and complex pro. Just so complex pro actually sound a little bit darker, but that's because we would need to play with these two settings here, which we'll do shortly. But let's go back and talk about beats, because there are some cool settings we can check out here to make some very cool, interesting results. So at the moment, it's trying to preserve transient. So whenever a note hits, the algorithm is saying, okay, I'm going to try preserve that. And you can choose between increments in time, like 1 bar up to 30-second notes, and just transients themselves. And it also tell the Beats algorithm how you want it to try and preserve these. As default, it's set to this forwards and backwards arrow, which basically means, because as you know, if you pitch something up, that's speeding it up. So it's stretching it out to keep it at the same speed. If we put this up an octave, it's going to be playing in a shorter amount of time. So because speed and pitch are related, if we pitch something up an octave, that means that we're actually speeding up the sounds. So let's say, for example, that this sound plays for 2 seconds. If we pitch it up an octave, it's going to play for less than 2 seconds because it's playing faster. If we pitch it down an octave, it's going to be playing for more than 2 seconds. So what these algorithms are trying to do in one way or another are keep the time that it's playing the same, but change the pitch. And so there are different methods that it does this. Because if you speed something up and pitch it up, then that means that it's going to be playing over a shorter amount of time. So then you're stretching the clip over the same amount of time. So it's going to introduce artifacts and stuff that isn't there because it's having to bridge the gaps with something. So the way it does that with beats is it's looking forwards and backwards. So whenever there's that stretching moment, it's going to try and replicate it by going forwards and backwards at the same time to bridge the gap. You also have the option to go just forwards, so it's just going to keep playing the same thing forwards to stretch the gap. And then it's saying this one here, where it's the arrow and then the line, as soon as it reaches the gap, it's just going to stop playing. So let's cycle through these and see what that sounds like. So this is the forwards and backwards algorithm. Now let's try double forwards. Actually sounds a little bit more glitchy, and I really like that sound actually. Let's listen to forward stop. So that one sounds staggered, like an arpeggio. I really like that as well. And then we can also change what it's preserving. We could change it to the 16th note. So let's go to, again, forwards and backwards again. And then forwards. And then forward stop. So that creates that gated sound. And this control here between 0 and 100 controls how much you want to preserve. So if we put it all the way down to 0, that's like really short gated, but if we kind of have somewhere in the middle, and then this is the same for these, we can control this. So it creates more of duttery effect, and you can create some really cool stuff through this. So as you can see here, say I'm just going to create a return channel for this, so it's a bit easier, and I'm going to create 2 return channels because I'm feeling extra fruity. To create a return channel, press Command Option T, and let's just put a echo on here for now. On return channels, you want to set the effects to 100% wet, just like your girlfriend when she sees me. And where the hell is my reverb? I was going to add these on. Listen to this again and send it to the reverb and echo. That sounds really cool. You're creating this glitchy effect. We're filling out the super glitchiness with echo and reverb, which is quite a cool trick you can use, especially if we were to go really pronounced with this stuttery thing. Like, let's go on the forward stop and have it really short. And let's try going a step further by, let's try pitching it up another octave and see how mad this sounds. I think that sounds really nice, actually. But without the delay and reverb, it was probably going to sound really messed up because it's up 2 octaves, not 1. So yeah, use some echo or delay and reverb to just fill the spaces out. Okay, so let's go back down to 1 octave and let's play around with the tones. So tones is really cool. This grain size control is basically what tones is doing is it's chopping up the sample in order to stretch the gap with pitching. It's chopping up the sample into small little chunks called grains, and the grain size is basically how big of a chunk is it chopping it up into. So you can go small or large. So in the middle it's at 30, so we can increase that. So it sounds a little bit more smooth, but if we go smaller, this will be even more pronounced if we stretch this out as well. If I press shift, I can stretch clips out. So let's stretch this to double the length it should be. God, there's so many filthy innuendos in this video. Let's listen to that now. So this is with the standard setting. So you can hear it a little bit more pronounced here. So if I put the grain size to the maximum, a bit more stuttery. So if I go down to minimum, so that actually sounds okay at smaller grain sizes because it's chopping it up into smaller, finer parts, and the messed up stretchiness is less pronounced, whereas at large grain sizes you can hear it being like, that's my impression of granular stretching. So yeah, it's quite cool. Let's do the same thing with texture. Let's keep it stretched out. In fact, let's stretch it out even more this time. So what we've done is we stretched it and then we stretched it out even more, just like I did to your girl last night. I'm so sorry about that. Let's listen now. So here we have a grain size and a flux. So similarly with the tones, we can control how big the chunks or grains are we chop up, and then we can control the flow of the grains through the algorithm. So let's have a listen. Play with the grain size. So you can see we can go all the way down to 2 in this one, where in tones we can only go down to 12. Plus we can go all the way up to 263. So this is really large grains. And I hope you can, just from hearing that, you can hear the potential of stuff you can do, which I'll show you in a bit. Let's put it back to the middle. Let's play with flux. So flux is a little bit more subtle. So flux is the rate of which these grains go through, and grain size is, of course, how big of the chunks they are. So a higher flux, it's a higher flux, it tends to smooth it out, but at lower, it makes it a bit more messed up and stuttered. Again, let's send these through the delays and reverbs just to see what that sounds like. Sounds really cool, eh? And complex, I mean, we have stretched it out to 4 times the length that the original sample was, and it's pitched up an octave, but it probably will sound fairly decent. And let's just get the original sap loop in there for reference. This is what it sounded like originally. And then stretching it out 4 times the length and pitching up an octave. Let's just try it without the octave and just as a reference. That's actually really close. Complex Pro is going to be, as I mentioned before, you have 2 controls. There's formants and envelope. So we can play with both the formants and the envelope here. So because it's a sort of high and middle range, I think we can keep the envelope roughly where it is, but we can play with the formant to try and get it to sound roughly the same as it was. That sounds fairly good. Let's compare it to complex. Very similar. I think we would probably use complex because there's less to go wrong for this, but for vocals, you definitely want to use Complex Pro. So that's all the algorithms and how they work and how you should use them. Let's talk about how we shouldn't use them. So what we can do is if I go to this audio track here, and I'm just going to expand this a little bit more. If I click here and click resampling, I can record audio from anything into this channel if I arm it. If we go to this texture mode, and we're having a lot of fun playing with this, right? That has got crazy breakdown written all over it. What we can do is, because you can't right click and map this to anything or automate it, what I can do is just record some random audio and play around with this and see if we like anything. So let's just start here and give this a go. That sounds pretty cool. Obviously, it's very messed up, but if we sort of drown it in some delay and reverb, it'll sound pretty dope. Let's have a listen. So, in context of the track, let's just bring this over here, for example, and see what we can come up with. In fact, I'm just going to stretch it out a bit more so it fits the loop. God, there's so much stretching today. So let's listen to this in context of the track, and just so you can kind of get a gauge of the kind of thing we're going for here. So it's a little bit out of time, as you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quantize this. So I'm going to click the clip, select all by Command A, and then I'm going to go to my quantize settings and maybe just quantize this to 16th notes roughly. Sounds pretty cool, eh? And I can just like maybe chop this section up here. Or just use some of it. I don't need to necessarily use it all, but if I bring in this as well, this is the original part. Let's just bring this back to its original, I think it was only 4-bar loop. There we go. Let's just make this a loop. It's a 4-bar loop. And listen to these both together. I think that sounds pretty good together, you know? And the reason why they sound good together is because, well, I made this second glitchy part from this part here. And you can use this to create, like, sounds and effects that complement each other well because they come from the same source. And so that feels at home. But I did just choose this random sample here, which, let's listen to it in context of the rest of this track here. It'll probably work, but we'll have a listen. actually quite like that, to be fair. And yeah, you can come up with these really unique results and sounds, or I can even just leave the ambience in rather than the original sample. I think they both sound good both with and without each other. Try programming that in MIDI or through a synth. You're going to have a very tough time. Even using like modular stuff is going to be very tough. And it was actually really easy with audio. We just basically took this loop, stretched it out some more, just like I did to your girlfriend last night, and then we pitched it up an octave, recorded it, like messing around with the warp settings using well, actually probably the correct setting, but we could have used something completely different. Like we could have taken this, for example, and we could have used beats mode and something like this. And that could be pretty cool as well for like an art. In fact, let's just whack this in here. I think this might even sound better than the original. Maybe send that to the delay and echo a bit to wash it out a bit. That sounds pretty dope to me. And we just messed around with the loop, stretched it out. We took it around the back and did some inappropriate things to it using the warp mode, of course. And we came up with that, which is really unique. And I don't think you'd be able to do that using MIDI or synthesis. But let's take it a step further because we just use a random loop. Let's use something that we already have in the project. We could maybe take, how about this pad? Let's take this moody pad and put resampling on. And I'm just going to duplicate this over here. Maybe just use this part here. Let's stretch out this first part like really, really extremely. How about that? How about that? You like that, don't you? Sorry, I don't know what's gotten into me today. Let's have a listen to how it sounds stretched out. So that's with the beats algorithm. I'm quite liking this texture one here. Let's pitch it up an octave. Yeah, let's try something like that. And then maybe let's take this and stretch this out. We're doing stretchception here. And then let's pitch this back down an octave. So it's going to be at the original pitch, but it's already stretched out. And we stretched it out some more. Oh my god. Let's use the texture one again. Sounds pretty cool, eh? And you know what? Maybe we could even, let's just stretch that out so it's, god, so much stretching. Maybe let's reverse this, and this could sound even more crazy. Use the beats algorithm. Put it on 16 notes. So how about that? Getting that stutter effect. We're using the beats algorithm, we're preserving 16th notes. Let's send it to the echo and reverb. I think that sounds killer. Let's whack that here. In fact, let's stretch out even more. Why the hell not? Let's see what this sounds like in the project. So, yeah, remember, this was this sound originally. But because we've made it from this sound, it should hopefully sound pretty at home, even though we've totally messed it up. So let's have a listen. That sounds really cool. I am not going to lie to you. So, we might have gone a little bit overkill with all the crazy granular glitch effects, but I'm just demonstrating here to show what you can do, and you can have a lot of fun. I really think this sort of reverse thing here, that had a lot of legs to it, and so did this little ARP and sort of granular version of itself. So I think we'll just tie things up there, because otherwise I'm going to spend all day doing this. My god, that was a lot of fun, wasn't it? I hope you enjoyed the video and you can use this technique to go and get some really cool, interesting, glitchy and messed up textures. They're so good to use in breakdowns. Like if you have like a main lead element or something, you can reintroduce it during the breakdown using this, or even just introduce the sound into the track using this technique, stretch out the audio and then have it all glitchy and messed up, and then it comes in. It's a really cool technique. You can use it in breakdowns, you can use it as ambiances, you can use it for all sorts of things, and sometimes it might not work, sometimes you might come up with stuff which isn't usable, but there will be some usable stuff in there, so do record everything and have some fun. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please do like and subscribe. What should I do the next video on? Comment below and I'll get it sorted for you. I'll see you next time. Happy producing.